Welcome to the Economic Lens. I'm your host, Krish Mehta, and as always, I'm thrilled to have you join me here as we explore the worlds of business, economics, and finance. As a high school student who's always eager to, understand the inner workings of a business, I created this podcast to connect you with the brilliant mind behind today's successful enterprises. So, as usual, we will engage with some of the top CEOs, founders, and industry leaders in retail and tech, the very visionaries who are transforming the future with their innovative strategies and distinct perspectives. So we'll explore their journeys, shedding light on the obstacles that they've surmounted and the inventive thinking ideas that is currently fueling their success. So let's introduce a very special guest here today, Mr. Rishi Vasudev. He's currently the CEO and founder and co-founder of G.O.A.T Brand Labs. He has a tremendous amount of experience in the fashion industry, having worked there for almost 23 years. An extremely accomplished individual who was also earlier the CEO of Lifestyle and Home Center. And moreover, he was also the senior vice president and head of fashion at the Flipkart group and also the CEO at Calvin Klein India. So obviously an extremely experienced personality and successful person. So naturally, it's a pleasure to meet you and have you here with us, sir.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
yeah, I guess with that, I think we'll just dive right into the questions. With this podcast, we usually start with a bit of a background, the career journey. So, if you could share your career journey, starting from your career in fashion retail to founding Good Brand Labs, what could have possibly inspired you to make such a, switch after working in the fashion industry for more than 23 years to, joining and founding this Good Brand Labs?
Yeah. Thank you, Krish. Thank you for having me over. Let's start with my background and what drove me to make the changes in my career journey, which will also explain why I started Code Brand Labs. So, I'm an electronics engineer from NIT Kurukshetra, did my MBA from MDI Gurgaon, and then joined the Aditya Birla Group as part of their group management training scheme. So, being sales and marketing, a postgraduate from MDI, I was really open to which field I would build my career on. And having joined the Aditya Birla Group, I wanted to join one of the businesses which had brands because the group at that time was largely commodity driven. And few of the options for me were Birla Mutual Fund, Grasim Textiles, which was the brand in fabric, and they also had a JV with AT&T, which was Birla Idea. At that time, it was called Birla AT&T, I think.
Mm,
So these were two, three brands that were there, and I was looking for one of those opportunities when I got placed in the fabric division. As luck would have it, the Birla Group acquired Madura
mm,
Garments
yeah.
that year, and suddenly the opportunity opened up in terms of a career in brands and fashion. Initially, I spent a couple of years in fabric sales, then moved to Bangalore to head up the suits business in Madura. Post that, I was then brand head of Louis Philippe. But again, I have always been wanting to do more than what is going on, and therefore push myself into new territories.
Mm,
Mathura is a very well organized company, is very process driven market leaders. I wanted to work for a brand which was a competing brand and underdog brand where you
mm,
fight the leader and see whether you can take them up on their game. That is when, after 9 years with the Aditya Birla Group, I switched and joined Arvind Brands. They had a very strong brand called Arrow, but at that time the brand was not doing so well as compared to
mm,
the competitors within Madura Garments. So 6 years I spent with the Arvind Brands running Arrow and growing it. I also used to run a brand called Gant, which was a Bristol
mm,
luxury brand. Uh, Having run that and having competed aggressively with all the others in the market and built the business in Arvind, again, the same itch struck me that let me do something different, having done it for close to 5 years. At that time, Arvind got into a JV with PVH for Calvin Klein. I became the CEO of Calvin Klein.
mm,
Uh, but by then I had spent almost 15, 16 years in the offline world, having seen retail, wholesale distribution, fabric sales, brand building. E-com was opening up.
right,
Uh,
correct, correct.
I said, why not look at e-commerce as a business. And at that time, everyone used to write off e-com as a discount channel, low
Mm-hmm.
price.
Yeah.
It was more like a brand factory. That is the time I decided to leave my career in fashion and brands in the offline world and join Flipkart Fashion. Obviously, the key thing for me at that time was number one, how to use technology to build brands. I always had this itch that after all, I'm an electronics engineer. I'm not using any of it.
Mm-hmm.
So being close to to the digital world would help me do that. And second thing was when you run a brand, you're always looking at one segment. You're either running a premium brand, a value brand, whereas Flipkart uh, provided you the opportunity to look at businesses right from 300 rupees per item to going up to a few lakhs per item, right? So it really was an opportunity to look at all the different Indias, India 1, 2, 3, through the lens of how Flipkart could open up that opportunity. So that's when I joined Flipkart. Again, a tremendous journey where I had to start from scratch on many things. Most of my colleagues and people in my team were much younger, people wearing shorts and chappals coming to office, but hugely accomplished because anyone you speak to had either built something or had just passed out of one of the premier colleges. And it was fun to really unlearn and work with those guys,
Mm-hmm.
belong, and then start to bring some of your past knowledge into building the business on Flipkart or on a horizontal marketplace. Um, in 2018 and to 2019, I became head of both Flipkart and Myntra Fashion when it was combined. So that was a very large responsibility. However, I had done 6 years and I was really looking at again challenging myself because this had been going on for some time. So I quit my job. There was an opportunity to work with Lifestyle Group as head of Lifestyle and Home Center. So I was eager to combine my learnings of the online world onto a big box, large, very successful retailer and see that how those two could be married. And right in the middle of COVID, I joined the the Landmark Group,
Mm-hmm.
and it for a year. But somewhere back of my mind, I just wanted to do something of my own. So uh, by early 21, I was done with my corporate stints, and I said, okay, if I really need to challenge myself, it's not going to be another corporate role, but it has to be something where it's really unknown for me. It's unknown because most startups are done by people who
Mm-hmm.
are much younger, ready to take large risks. And I said, okay, let's challenge myself. So that's when GOAT happened. The thesis of GOAT is simple that how can I combine the energy and the creativity of young founders who have built businesses in fashion lifestyle space to a certain level, and then whether I can bring my experience of having seen scale both online and offline to help some of these brands grow. So that's how we started through the last 3 years. It's been an amazing journey of learnings, uh, a lot of things, learning to hear no more often than you would hear in a corporate career because
Mm-hmm.
the startup you are almost nobody when you're starting off. So you need people to fund you, you need
Correct,
people to
correct.
partner with you. You do not have the scale to have any
Mm.
leverage for any partner. So you need to constantly relook at what you're offering to the other party to be able to stand a chance to get through. And yeah, it's been a very humbling and exciting journey, but it sets me up nicely to keep doing it for a very long time, and that's what I enjoy about it.
Correct. Correct, correct. Wow. An amazing journey to say the least. So, I mean, you said, when you're starting, even you have a startup, you don't have the, scale to leverage any partner. You don't have the, necessary connections, the resources. So, what really motivated to you to become, an entrepreneur, per se? And I guess more importantly, how did you actually go on and identify this, gap in the market, if I would put in that way, of creating this house of D2C brands? Because I think Goat Brand Labs is quite unique in that sense that it houses this plethora of D2C brands. So how did you identify I guess the A part of the question be, what motivated you to become an entrepreneur? And B would be, how did you identify that, this gap in the market of creating a D2C brands, and you went on and built that up?
Uh, so number one, what motivated me is to take up, a challenge which was far bigger than what I had been doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so challenges can be two kinds, right? One could be the challenge of scale. So as you start handling larger and larger
Mm-hmm.
portfolio, and typically in corporate, that's what happens, that as you start handling more and more size of opportunity, you believe you are going up in your career. So that's one way. The other way is to really do everything grounds up, right? So in corporates, a lot of things happen because the organization has that built in into the systems, or there are things you don't have to worry about because they get done. You have colleagues who are doing it, and you just need to focus on the key things to really enhance. In a startup, right from printing the first offer letter to reaching out to the first employee, to finding the next round of funding to be able to, it requires every aspect to be looked into, and that's a different challenge, right? It's a different
Mm-hmm.
challenge, different learning. A lot of people do not want to do that. They want to focus on one thing. But like I said, it could be larger and larger scale in one thing, or a smaller scale, but then you are looking into everything.
Correct.
The second thing is you are your own boss, right? In corporates, typically, we find ways to have excuses for something not done, right? Okay, I can get away by saying this, or I can get away by blaming it to this department or that colleague, or this support that I didn't get from the board or from my
Mm-hmm.
seniors. In a startup, there is no escaping, right? There's
Right.
no comfort of a salary coming your way, no comfort of jumping ship if it's not working out. So it's the ultimate test for me, at least that's how I thought of it, is that, how can you show your adaptability, endurance, being able to get into things that you never had to do in your career, and while it was getting done in your organization. And that's challenging for me, and therefore, uh, as I felt like taking more and more challenges, it came about.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to why this, so it's very important that uh, you be aware of what you're good at and where you can add value, right? It's not about getting started anywhere, right? So, second is you need to be aware of what's your passion, what do you really want to do, because you need to be excited about what you're doing. Third is these two should add up to a business proposition which has a sufficient TAM, right? Otherwise, there would not be
Mm-hmm.
investors, there would not be enough business size. So therefore, the first two is pretty clear. I have been for all my life being in the fashion industry. I have spent time both in offline and online. So it was pretty obvious that if I can help founders who are trying to create a brand first online and then scaling them through an omni-channel model, those are things I have done. And I believe I have seen many aspects of it, and therefore it excites me, and I could add value there. So those
Mm-hmm.
take care of the first two. The third one is really the insight on what I saw in Flipkart, right? So as Flipkart went through those 5, 6 years that I was there at Flipkart, and then Myntra plus Flipkart, just the fashion business grew at Flipkart from 200 million to $2 billion in 5 years. It was exploding. The
Mm-hmm.
penetration of fashion in India is still single digits or
Right.
max
Exactly.
10%. So there is a lot of headroom, and any report you see will say that from a 20 to $25 billion size is going to be 100 billion by 2030. Now, if this is the explosion that's going to happen, the
Mm-hmm.
market obviously will have opportunities for many new brands. In fact, it works both ways, that if enough brands are not created, the market will probably not expand, because any marketplace to grow needs more selection, right? So selection
Mm-hmm.
has to be created. On the other side, because it is opening up to such a large extent and so many people would be shopping online, it's the opportunity for many new propositions to come in. So, in the old world where distribution was restricted to your ability to open stores or multi-brand stores, which would have a limited set of brands that they could keep, you had a few brands going to 1,000 crores, right, or 2,000
Mm-hmm.
crores. But with e-commerce, you can have multiple successful brands at 70 crores, 100 crores, but being true to their proposition, not trying to
Mm-hmm.
be everything to everyone, right? So therefore, there's a large opportunity for brands to be created. It's a large market, and yeah, so all of that put together told me that yes, this is something I love to do, and this is something that really has big enough market opportunity. So why not jump in
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm. Understood. Understood. Were there any other like major problems that you'd face? Because obviously when you're founding this whole new company, you'd obviously face a lot of setbacks. More importantly, how did you overcome the problems you have in funding? Because I think as an economic student, I think that's something you learn, that the funding, especially for the startup with the mortality rate being so high, is obviously one of the biggest problems. So how did you go about and overcome the problem funding? Because I know it's a pretty big problem to have, right? So how do you go about and overcome that?
so, so there are multiple things in funding, right? One is what is the state of the market. When I started in 21, I was quite fortunate. It was a time where a lot of checks were written quite easily, right? It's
Hmm.
only after that that the whole market moved to a very cautious approach. So
Hmm.
post-COVID, the cost of debt was very low in the US, and therefore a lot of money was flowing into new
Okay.
age startups, and that's the time I started. So, and given my background, I was able to raise the first round pretty quickly.
Hmm.
Uh, Post that, there are two ways to build a business. One way is that there are businesses which take time to build, even traditional businesses. Like I remember when Coca-Cola came into India, they said we
Hmm.
will be investing so much money over next 10 years, not only to gain
Right.
share, but also to get more and more people to use.
Hmm.
So similarly in startups, you need to have a period where you are spending more than what you're earning. And that's where you are trying to establish a proposition or trying to
Hmm.
establish channels which did not exist for the brand or the for any proposition. So some of the businesses are built for consistent investment over a longer period of time before they hit profitability because scale
Hmm.
becomes important for them. So as the market, fortunately, ours is a brand's business. A lot of it depends on our direct channels, like our own website. But we
Hmm.
also have the support of marketplaces and other new age channels that are coming up. So
Hmm.
as we have moved forward and how as the markets have moved from a very, very positive territory to very cautious territory, um, we have been able to decide on where we want to focus, what kind of cost we should have, what kind of cost we should not have, how fast to hit profitability, and therefore the dependence on external funding comes down. However, every business needs investment to begin with, so it is tough to raise money, but then
Hmm.
it's something that as a founder you need to consistently do. You need to
Correct.
consistently be aware that if you meet 100 people, maybe 50, 60 may not have a positive view on the sector itself because a lot of VCs decide which sectors they would
Hmm.
invest and not invest. And then it moves to the next round where if they are interested in the sector, within that sector, what are their stages of investment? And then within that stage, what is the experience they have had or what they have heard? And whether it fits into their thesis of growth, returns,
Hmm.
etc. So there are many factors which all need to come
Hmm.
together to be
Hmm.
able to stitch around. So it becomes more and more. But then, if there is something worthwhile that you are building, you will find people who would see, like they say, everything has a price. It's when there is a lot of speed in the market, there is FOMO. People do not mind the
Hmm.
price.
Hmm.
When there's slowness in the market, they would, kind of negotiate harder on the price. But then, that's the whole interesting thing about startups is on one side you are
Hmm.
building, and other side you need to keep convincing people to
Correct.
come partner, put money behind your idea so that both of you can see a big return in the end.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Understood. Okay. So I guess um, getting a little more specific into what Goat Brand Labs actually does. So, I mean, what would you say are the current trends in the D2C space, and how do you ensure that your brands stay ahead of these trends? Because the interesting thing about Goat Brand Labs is that it houses, such a unique mix of brands. I think it houses from all the way from beauty to healthcare to entertainment. So so not only how ensuring that your brands stay ahead of these trends, I guess the other thing is, eh, given that you have such a broad mix of brands, how you ensuring that how you managing all of the brands and ensuring that they are collectively staying ahead of these trends, because obviously, like I said, you have a very interesting mix of brands. So how do you ensure you stay ahead of this very, very rapidly evolving and competitive D2C space?
Yeah. Uh, there are largely two ways. One way is that you build a single brand, right? So therefore,
Mm,
all the energy of the team founder goes into building a single brand. You build capabilities that are required for that brand. You choose to hire people specifically for that brand. The other way is to build it as a house of brands, where not only are you building a few brands, you are also building capabilities which are
mm,
relevant for these
mm.
brands and could be relevant for more brands to going forward, right? So ours is the latter model. We know of
Right.
many brands where they
Mm,
have built one brand and everybody has been focused on that. A lot of people question that why not one brand, why not multiple brands? It's a different business model, and we have seen many companies through the years, through the decades, being built up on a house of brand model, right? For example, LVMH, they started with single brand and then added more brands. But then each brand was able to use the capability that they built
mm,
for
mm,
multiple brands, and therefore the rest of the brands could take advantage of that. Closer home, uh, you have Madura Garments, for
mm,
example,
mm,
or Arvind, where it's one company, multiple brands. However, it's a house of brands model where they have capabilities in distribution, sourcing, warehousing, logistics, etc., that are built. Slight difference in a digital space is that when you do a house of brands in the offline world, you tend to stick to one category because a lot of distribution is, the fabric distribution is different from garment distribution, is different from FMCG distribution, and therefore,
mhm,
similarly, sourcing, etc., are different, and therefore you tend to stick to one category. However, if you come to e-commerce, uh, the key things that you require is direct to consumer
mm,
logistics, which is
mm,
common in various categories. You need to be good at performance marketing, whether it is on Amazon or Myntra or directly to the consumer, which is again common whether you are selling an apparel or the nuances might change, the amount you
mm,
spend
mm,
might change, but that's again a capability which you can leverage across different uh, and then the relationship. All marketplaces sell multiple categories. So Mintra has fashion, home, beauty. Amazon has all the categories. Flipkart has all the categories. So even if you have diverse set of brands, you are still selling on the same platform, and
mm,
therefore
mm,
scale. If there's no scale in one brand or low scale in one brand, across multi brands, you have sufficient scale
mhm,
to be able to get Mintra to or Amazon or Flipkart to be able to give you the support that is required as against a single brand player. Uh,
mhm.
Seeing this, we looked at businesses in various categories. However, as we have built over 3 years, we realized some spaces are doing better, basically because of the opportunity as well as our ability to in that our capabilities on that space. So largely now we are focusing on fashion, home. So we have a brand called Chumbak in home. We have multiple
Right.
brands
Mm,
in fashion and BPC where we have a couple of brands. We also have one successful pets brand called Pet Crux, but very early we acquired that and it continues to do well and sell on Amazon. But yeah, largely our focus has been to build more and more capabilities around fashion.
mhm. Understood. Understood. So I guess uh, building off of this building and managing brands, key part of what Goat Brand Labs obviously does is brand growth. And I guess given the rise in digital platforms, e-commerce, and more importantly this the rise in omni-channel, that's something that I've heard quite a bit. It's quite the buzzword nowadays. So how has it impacted the way you build and scale D2C brands, comparing it, I guess, 5 to 10 years before and vis-a-vis what it is right now? And how has that landscape changed? And more importantly, what strategies have you as a founder implemented to leverage, these changes in e-commerce and omni-channel?
Yeah. So largely there are two groups of brands. One is big successful offline brands like
Mm-hmm.
you could name many Van Heusen, Puma, Nike, Adidas, etc., which also sell online, right? But the core DNA or the large part of the sales is offline, and then they
Offline.
leverage online to either clear out inventory or introduce new styles or
Correct, correct.
so that's one set. The other set is with the boom of the marketplaces, there are a lot of new labels, which I call sellers, who have built large businesses on Flipkart, Amazon, etc. They are well tuned to the pricing and the nuances of marketplaces, and therefore you would see that they would have sharp prices, they would have sharp promotion schemes, and therefore they have built large businesses. But you don't discover them outside of the Myntra Flipkart, because when they start try to sell full price in the offline world, consumers see a huge dissonance, that they have a
Mm-hmm.
huge dissonance because they are selling at 60-70% discount on those platforms. But they're priced in such a way so that when they get traffic, they convert faster if they have high discount. So largely, when I was running Flipkart through those years from 2014 to 19, the emergence of these two happened, right? However, there is now an opportunity, and the first movers in that has been the beauty brands, where businesses are built first on e-commerce, not as a discounted model, but as a full
Mm,
price model, which means that you are brands which are recognized by customers, you have huge following on Instagram, you create new content, you create new
mm,
products which people
mm,
follow. They buy directly on your own website, and they also buy on the marketplaces, right? So there have been huge examples like Mama started with that, and then Sugar and all of that, right? So that trend is catching up, and that's a large change in the last
mm.
5 years. That there are businesses which are e-commerce first. We have a brand called
Right.
True Accounts, which was built on to start with marketplaces, then became very big on own
Mm,
website. And now, because these are well recognized by customers, the products are differentiated, the look is differentiated, a lot of celebrities are seen in these brands. So consumers recognize these brands. And now when they go offline, they are
mm,
online
mm.
brands going offline as compared to the offline brands going online.
Understood.
And
Understood.
therefore it's a different omni-channel approach, where
Mm,
your thinking is still online first. And it's a big difference. It's not just about channel, it is also about how you create products. uh, a typical offline brand plans at least 12 months ahead of a season, right?
mm,
They
mm,
have multi channels to take care of. They will make a range, they will go to different channel partners, or people in the stores get feedback and then launch it very efficiently, right? Whereas the D2C brands are always looking for new trends. So therefore their collections are much closer to the season. Their feedback loop is more digital. What are people
mm,
searching? What are they seeing? What are the trends that are coming up? What marriages are happening? What are people wearing in those? And those define what you launch every month, right? Which is much faster mind to market. Now, as these brands become more offline driven, they have to follow the second mode, where they lose their whole agility of being a D2C brand. And therefore, while it might look a simple game of distribution,
mm,
makes it also the way the teams are, the supply chains are structured, the teams are structured, the feedback loop, all of that is very different from D2C brands. And therefore, that's the difference that they are creating, that much faster to market, much more trendy, much more content,
mm,
which is very happening here and now, and that's what excites the new customer, as against the traditional model. So that is where they are able
mm,
to create the disruption. Like same in the case of Mamaearth, I'm told that they launch hundreds of products every in every cycle. It's monthly or
mm.
quarterly. However, if you see traditional companies, they have a research wing which takes almost many quarters to really
Right.
finalize one
Mm,
product.
mm.
So that has really disrupted the market. Now, that was a very well thought out research strategy. Here it's put it out there, fail fast,
Right.
customer feedback. Out of 100, if 98
Mm,
fail, no problem, but you have got two winner products and then start to scale them up, right? So,
right.
uh, so Omni is not just about channel, it is also about how companies function, how they react to information, and that's what is disrupting the market. So
Mm,
our brands are more digital first. Our stated objective is that none of them should become more than 25% offline. And therefore, we would like to be 75% online and 25% offline, because the moment we become the reverse, the
mm,
thing again shifts to how to manage multi-channel, how to have longer cycles of uh, launch, and therefore it takes away the whole agility and the
right.
excitement of being quick to
Mm,
market and quick to trends. Yeah.
mm. So Omni is just not about, it's not just about channel, great quote. So I guess moving on to leadership style is something I ask almost every guest speaker that we have here. So as the CEO and founder of your company, how would you define your leadership style to be? And what do you believe are the most important qualities of an effective leader in your space, the D2C industry?
Uh, I think based on what I said just before this question, right? I think speed is very important, both
Okay.
as a startup as well as in the e-commerce space. Uh, Second is surrounding yourself with people who know more than you is again very important because, like I keep saying, how much ever I might try, I would not be as good as digital marketing as some of the guys who have
Mm.
started their career getting into that, right? So being able to surround yourself with people who are better than you. Third is, I think, very critical is to work in the trenches. It
Okay.
cannot be that you organize the whole thing around a general sitting up there and then
Okay.
pushing commands
Okay.
to the next level and pushing it down. So you need to work very closely with all the key stakeholders, all the key people in the team who bring that particular knowledge or that particular skill into being. And last is that being authentic, right? So I think in a startup or in any setup, you need to be authentic. You need to really say what's happening. The information should be out there. There should not be pockets of information lying that only this guy will know this and the others won't know this.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, free flowing spread of information, being
Mm.
authentic, keeping people informed on what we are doing, why we are doing, becomes very important because which side is working on which part of the problem, it's very difficult to centralize everything and then be able to direct everyone. So, but if people are equipped with information, they understand what the company is trying to do, then in their little decision making, etc., they are able to take those things forward. So
Mm-hmm.
that I would believe is the key things in today's leadership.
Right. So speed, surrounding yourself with people who know more than you, being authentic, and coming down to the lowest of positions, coming down to surround yourself, with people not just sitting on the top leadership position. Great pointers. And I guess moving on, what advice would you give to, young individuals like myself, and maybe a few of them who are older than me, but who may aspire to start their own D2C brand? Is there a key set of pointers that you would give to them?
Yeah. So I think a few pointers to just people starting off. I think you need to take a very long view of the journey. A lot of people look at the successes and then they say that, okay, if I'm not hitting a huge success wave, both in
Mm.
terms of funding, some people may count funding as a success,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not,
Okay.
or, product market fit. It doesn't happen just like that unless you have invented something where there is a huge demand for something. Everything else is a known problem. You are executing it better than anyone else, right? So look at all the successful startups. It's not that they created something so innovative that some patent could protect them, but they
Mm-hmm.
just executed it well. Whether it's Flipkart, uh, which the model was Amazon's model, but they
Mm-hmm.
made more
Correct.
focused on India, customized it to what Indians want, and therefore we're able to innovate around that.
Mm.
So my whole thing is that you should have at least a 5 to 10 years horizon in your mind if you start a startup. Obviously, you start a lot of people start without a clear idea in place. You should give yourself time to hit a product market fit. And if you're not hitting a product market fit, you should then be able to move on to another idea or move on to another path that you might take. But be there for the long haul.
Mm.
Uh, there will be wins, but there will be a lot of misses and bad days that you out there. You have to turn up every day and just keep going. There will be people around you. You might start up, and there might be people who would join you, but then everyone's looking up to you and really
Mm.
reading the signals as to what to read from what you're saying, and therefore that positivity has to come from within. Every morning you need to get up and say, yes, there are challenges, I need to surmount them, but then there are these huge opportunities in front of us,
Mm,
and if you do not exude that confidence, all the people around you, whether your suppliers, your partners, your funding, the guys who would fund you, the employees, all of them will see through it, right? So therefore, you need to be maintain a positivity around for a very long period of time and keep yourself up to the task. So these
mm,
are things you need to keep in mind.
mm.
Everything else you will discover on the way, whether the idea is great or the idea is ahead of time or the idea needs to be proven. Uh, yeah, so those are things which everyone will tell you. But two things I tell people is that be there for the long haul and just be positive throughout the journey, because there's no
Mm-hmm.
that you can let your shoulders sag.
Mm-hmm. Understood. A very, very motivating answer, that doesn't only work for D2C, but also works for even a high schooler like myself in school, be there for long haul. There will be wins, but there'll be many more days where you miss, but you
Yeah.
have to surmount those challenges. So I guess, given that we only have a few minutes left, to wrap things up, a final question, could you share a significant lesson that you've learned during your career that's had a lasting impact on how you approach, I guess, life, how you approached, getting up every day and working? Has there been like a key incident that's shaped your career and the way you approach life, if at all?
So everyone has their style of how they approach, and you have to develop your own style. I don't think there is a right style or a wrong style.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the style that has worked for me is, getting into the details and looking at every problem as an opportunity or as a puzzle to be solved. And like you really, rack up your brains to really solve a puzzle and see why not this way, that way. So every problem there is a solution, whether it's within you or within people you get to help you, or somewhere else. So I have looked at uh, my throughout my career, I have looked at challenging assignments, and I have looked at how can I push myself to really solve those challenges and move forward. Obviously, there are other ways. Some people are good at networking. Some people are good
Mm-hmm.
at doing one thing and keep increasing the challenge. Different things work for different people. So I'm not saying what worked for me should work
Mm-hmm.
for everyone else. But uh, early lesson has been that push yourself, challenge yourself, and if you keep working at it, you will find ways to improvise and get better
Oh,
and surmount
okay.
that. And then the reverse also happens, that you start looking for challenges which are
Mm-hmm.
enough for you. Yeah, so that's what has kept me going.
Okay.
Also, setting goals is very important for me. So I also
Obviously.
run alongside. So
Oh, wow.
uh, yeah, I don't love
Okay.
just going for a run just for that. So there has to be a goal for everything. So
Okay.
any point of time, I'm training for the next half marathon that I have to run. There is a certain goal of how I can get better, and then there are
Mm-hmm.
sub goals of what will it take for me to run that distance in terms of either strength or various parameters that you track as a runner.
Understood.
So yeah,
Okay.
taking up challenges, measuring, and keep working at surmounting them is what has worked for me throughout my career, and I continue to do
Wow.
that.
Okay. Well, extremely one of the most motivating, I guess, interviews we've had so far, So that wraps up an extremely helpful episode of the Economic Lens. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our incredible guest, Mr. Rishi, for sharing such a motivating and successful career journey, I hope this journey was as interesting to our viewers as it was to me. And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Again, Mr. Rishi, we're grateful for your time and for generously sharing your perspective with us. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.